Welcome to another episode. So today we're going to be replacing and upgrading the radiator on our family adventure vehicle. So this is a 2008 Yukon XL Denali, or Yukon Denali XL as it would be written. This 2008-2009 did not have the AFM or DOD systems, so it doesn't try to drop down to 4 cylinders, which is great. So the Denali has the 6.2 liter with the 6L80 transmission, first generation that had it. And if you end up with a 10 or 11, I don't remember exactly, somewhere right in there they changed and they did the DOD in the AFM. That brings a whole new slew of problems. So if you stick with an early one, an 8 or 9, you can get that 6.2, which is essentially an LS3. It's got some differences in the heads and stuff, but overall very similar to the LS3. Makes a ton of power, a ton of torque, a lot more than we were debating on getting one of these or an 8.1 in the older series, the 2500. We ended up with this just because it came up on a really good deal. It's a high mile, but very well taken care of. 6.2 liter. This will tow our 26-foot bumper pull camper. The camper weighs about 6,500 pounds. We're going to be adding some helper bags to it to help with that. But one of the major issues that we've noticed is where we live, when we're pulling hills or if we're on the freeway for, at height above 60 miles an hour or anything like that with a load, the temperature gauge likes to creep up. It's only ever crept up to about 3/4. I didn't have a scan tool with me to see the exact temperature, but pretty common. Pretty much all the, I think 2000 or 2001 to 14 GM SUVs and trucks use the same radiator, which is a single pass, pretty small radiator. I should say gas trucks and SUVs. The diesels I think have a different one, but pretty small radiator. It's just enough. So if they get old, if they get debris in them, if they get any of the deck school sludge in them, anything like that happens, then they start to lose their efficiency. So on this one, it's high mile, but when we're pulling hills with the trailer, the temperature likes to climb. So to mitigate that, we've put a cooler thermostat in it, helped a little bit, not a ton. We changed the fans, does help a little bit. Not getting the results I want. So radiator's next. I could probably just replace the radiator with another factory radiator, and it would probably be fine. But why do that when you can upgrade? So we're going to be putting in, here's our part number here, a Mishimoto all aluminum. I think it's a 3-pass, if I remember right, a 3-pass all aluminum radiator. From what I've read and what I've seen, a lot of people claim that you're going to get roughly 40 degrees on trans and engine temperature cooler operating through this radiator versus the factory one. So pretty excited to slam it in. We're going to be just doing the radiator in this video. So here's our new radiator unboxed. From my understanding, this is the same radiator, basically, like I said, 2000 or 2001 up to 14. This will fit in pretty much all the gas GM trucks and SUVs. As you can see, it's provisioned for, you can either run your mechanical fan, or if your vehicle has electric fans like this one, it's set up for the electric fan shroud. It has transmission cooler lines and oil cooler lines. Not all the vehicles had both. Some had standalone, some didn't have any. So my vehicle does not have a factory oil cooler right now, but it does have the trans cooler that will attach over there. But yeah, this thing is quite a bit thicker then the factory radiator. I'll pull the factory one out and do a side-by-side comparison. But yeah, pretty excited just in general to have much better cooling. It's going to make me feel better pulling with the family. Step one, we are going to take this cover off right here. It is just held on by pop clips, so you've just got these pop clips that go across. We're going to pop them off. If you don't have a pair of these, go buy some. These are, I can get them at Harbor Freight for like $7. They make pulling these clips, I'll see if I can get you, just simple, and then you're not marring them up with a screwdriver and everything like that. So go get yourself a set of these. If you don't have them, they make just working on everything just that much simpler. So we're gonna get this off, and we'll go to the next step. For these next couple steps, doesn't really matter what order you do them in. You could do one or the other first. So the next couple things that has to happen is, on this one, the electric fans need to come out. If you've got a fan clutch, it's going to be attached to the water pump there. You can get the fan clutch off next. It's going to need a special wrench, or if you have a real thin crescent, you could do that, but easiest thing to do is to put a wrench on it and smack it with a hammer to break it loose, or if you've got a special impact attachment, to do that. On this one, it's electric fans, so quite a bit simpler. Just a couple bolts here, so there's a bolt there, and there's a mirrored sister one over there. And then this hose is attached here. Just has a clip underneath it that you can pry out with a pry tool, or you can use a screwdriver and unclasp it there, which is probably what I'll do. And then there's a couple plugs down below for those fans that need to be unplugged, and then these fans will slide right up out of here. If you have electric fans like this one, there's going to be a bolt right there that's holding those holding an AC line, it looks like. You're gonna need to disconnect that bolt as well in order to slide these fans up out of here. But basically, I just popped this hose out of its holder, and then this one I just popped the little Christmas tree clip out, and we'll do these. Should go without saying, obviously don't do this while the engine's super hot. This one's still a little bit warm, that's why I'm doing fans first, and I'm going to work on some other stuff while it cools down before I drain the coolant. You don't want to burn yourself with the coolant. Obviously don't open the cap when it's blazing hot either. But yeah, so a couple bolts here. We're going to get these bolts out and start moving these fans. The electric fans have a plug right on the fan that you just squeeze down to remove, and that's on both of the fans. Alright, so if you've got electric fans and you've got these upper two bolts out, your fan's unplugged, it's almost ready to come out. So there's one there, and there's one attached down lower there. Looks like they're 10 millimeters, so you're gonna have to get those two bolts out and kind of get those lines out of the way, and then we can get this up. Okay, so you can probably get these fans out first if you really wanted to, but with the wings that are on it and stuff, it's going to be a lot easier with these radiator hoses out of the way. So we're going to drain the coolant first. So there is a petcock down there at the bottom of this radiator. Not all of them have it, but this one does. And there's a little nipple off to the side that you can attach a hose to, and that hose will allow you to feed the coolant away so it doesn't splash everywhere. Alternatively, you can just pull the lower radiator hose that's over on that side over there, and it'll just splash everywhere and be crazy. But I'm probably going to try to get down to this petcock and just drain the coolant slowly, just so that I don't make a giant mess. And then once we do that, we can get this radiator hose off and get these fans up out of the way. So underneath the vehicle, get a wider angle here so you can see where I'm at. So on the driver's side, kind of right up between this fender liner, you can reach your hand up in there and get to that petcock. I had a little piece of 3/8 heater hose, sprayed the end of it with some brake clean or glass cleaner or whatever, and was able to work it onto that nipple up there. Sorry, I can't get this to focus. There you go. So that is going to allow me to guide the drain wherever I want, so I can put it in my catch without making a giant mess. Alternatively, you could just open it, let it spray, or like I said, just undo one of those radiator hoses and let it spray that way too. But I'm going to try to do it the fancy way here. So, okay, so the after the petcock is pretty much done, just down to a dribble, I went ahead and shut it. Now we're going to come over to the passenger side. I've turned the wheel out of the way and removed this pop clip that was holding this fender liner in right here. And if you just kind of bend that fender liner out of the way, you can get up in here and you can get right to that bottom radiator hose clamp. So the next step is we're going to move our catch over here, because inevitably there's still going to be some coolant, and we're going to undo that clamp and let the rest of it drain out. And then there's one more right up there, a hose attached, that's going to need to come off as well. And once those are off, then we can unbolt the radiator, and or we can get the upper radiator hose off, get the fans out, and we can unbolt the radiator and pull it out. So we've got our fans out of the way, got our radiator hoses off. There are two small ones. There's one here and one there. Next, we got to get these trans cooler lines off. Earlier, I think I misspoke and said they were AC or something, but they're definitely trans cooler. Now that I can see where they go, I couldn't see before with the shroud. In order to get these guys off, they just have a little cover on them that you just slide back, and then you use a little pick, and they have a little C-clip type of a wire ring on them. And here, I'll get a pick and I'll show you what I mean. And then they just pull out. Be prepared, you're definitely going to lose some fluid, so make sure you've got an absorbent pad or something below this. So you just kind of want to grab the edge of it, put your finger underneath it, because these will fly away. Kind of hard to do one-handed. A lot of times I'll grab a second pick and hook that loop right there. But basically, once you get both sides released, then this will just pull straight out. Now that those are out of the way, I actually stole one of those little caps from the new radiator just to plug that, because it was just pouring transmission fluid. Even though I've got a pad down there, it's still a lot, so slowed it down quite a bit. So now that we've done that, we're completely disconnected. So we've got our clips, which this is what they look like. So just make sure you've got a finger on the back of them as you pull them out so they don't spring away. And then pulled those trans cooler lines out. You might have oil cooler lines, which would be the same thing on this side. Now that we've done that, we've basically just got these two bolts on either side of the radiator to unbolt, and then this whole thing will come out of there. So I wanted to show you the difference between the OEM radiator and this Mishimoto radiator. So as you can see, it's quite a bit thicker, obviously, but all aluminum construction, which is nice, versus the clamped on side tanks, which are prone to leaking. So having this set up is much more ideal if you're going to be putting your rig through some heavy towing or hill climbs or anything like that. It's just going to provide better cooling in general. So with everything out, make sure you do some cleanup. I used some brake clean, some rags. There was quite a bit of ATF and stuff that fell down in there. I still need to wipe some up. But yeah, and this is also a good time to inspect your condenser here and make sure it's not clogged up or anything. So I'll shine some light through that, see if it needs hosed out, and then we'll get this radiator back in. So for mounting, we're gonna have to move these grommets over to the new one. So they should just pry out of there with a screwdriver. We'll just pop them out and pop them in the new radiator. And then on mine, I'm not going to be using this side because I don't have an oil cooler. However, it could be added just by buying the oil cooler lines. But I will be using the transcooler side. We'll also need to move these bottom feet grommets over. You can move them over to the radiator or to the vehicle, either way, but they need to go in as well. Radiator's in, got the rubber feet underneath it, got our grommets in here. Make sure you tighten this. This is a 19 millimeter or 3/4. It doesn't come tight out of the box, so make sure you give that a couple snugs. And then over here, we've got all of our lines attached. The new kit comes, the new radiator comes with those spring clips already installed, so you just push those in until they click, and then you can put those little covers back over. I've reattached the upper, center, and lower radiator hose from the top. This hose is accessible from the top with the fans out and stuff pretty good, but earlier we did that so that we could drain more coolant out of it. And then from here, we're ready to put our fans back in now that this radiator is all mounted up. And we'll put our fans in, plug them in, attach our upper radiator hose, and then we should be able to fill it with coolant from there, and then just check for leaks. She's all put back together. You can see it hiding right here. You see that Mishimoto. Unfortunately, the condenser blocks the big M, but it does have an M painted on it. Everything is put back together. All the hoses are reattached, and the fans are plugged back in. Don't forget that step, or you'll have overheating problems, of course. So everything's back together now. There's coolant and stuff everywhere, so we need to wash this down. But we're gonna fill it up with coolant first and run it a little bit and just make sure that we don't have any obvious leaks. And then we'll run it outside and probably get the hose on it and kind of just rinse all this extra coolant and everything that's everywhere off. I have my helper filming for me here, but pulling loaded. We're seeing trans temps of about 194. Been pulling for about 30 minutes by now. On the previous setup, we would be about 220 on trans, and we'd be about 3/4 on that temp gauge. So digital, according to OBD, we're cruising right around 210, 213 coolant temps, which is significant improvement. Unfortunately, I don't have data, digital data on previous temps, so I don't know how high they were actually getting. I just know that they were getting about 3/4 on that temp gauge. So overall, very happy. Seeing, you know, roughly 25-degree drop on trans temp, so I can only assume, you know, pretty similar on engine.